And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 9th round of the 2020/2021 Snowstorm Open Wheel Racing Series season. Tonight, coming to you live from the virtual Oulton Park Circuit, or Oulton Park Raceway. It goes by both on the internet, and I'll be calling it Oulton Park Circuit for most of the night, but regardless of what you would call it, it is an absolute joy of a track. It is one of my personal favorite on the service, and I can't wait to get tonight's 9th round going. Of course, last week we went to the that was the doubleheader at Detroit Belle Isle, a race that certainly had no lack of drama and no lack of excitement. Trevor Anderson taking the first win of his season, one that has been very successful for him, but it was his first official win of the year. Took that in the first half of the doubleheader, and then in the second half, Logan Pacza got his 5th win of the season. He is still the only driver to this point to win multiple races in the year, and well, now he's done it twice. It has certainly been a commanding season for the current championship points leader, and we'll go over his points lead in a moment. But for the time being, I am your commentator, as always, Mr. Marshall Crocker Jr., coming to you tonight with some new equipment. Be sure to let me know what you guys think. It's, certainly going to be, hopefully, a more visually pleasing broadcast. Going to pump things up with the new computer, and hopefully things look and sound better. If anything is different or anything is out of the ordinary, be sure to let me know, and I'll try to get everything fixed before the end of the broadcast if anything goes wrong. But hopefully you'll be able to experience the beauty of the Oulton Park Circuit here in the lovely United Kingdom in all of its lovely virtual glory. But we got to first look at your track for tonight's race before we talk about the points heading into it. Here is a quick map of the Oulton Park Circuit. Again, not a crazy high quality image, but that's not the computer of the broadcast. That is just because it's very hard to find a fully formed photo or image of this track's layout. But there is the Oulton Park Circuit, a track that, well, maybe looks conventional to some, but certainly a little bit more of an interesting design for a track than a lot of other circuits we've run on the calendar. Sometimes, like Belle Isle, they can be very box-shaped, lots of 90-degree corners, but here at Oulton Park, you don't really get that. Every corner is a new beast and a new sort of challenge in its own right. So just a quick thing to note, this is not the version we'll be running in tonight's race. This is the, I believe it's called the with Hislop configuration. So there on our track is a different version. So you see the Fulstons corner there, if you want to look down to the right side of your screen. Fulstons, aka Britons, is a corner that's essentially meant to be a hard right-hand chicane that has a very large tire on the inside of it, so it's a very tough corner to hit and certainly tough to run with multiple cars at once. As a result, it's very tricky to run, and I've taken it off the layout, so we're not going to be running that track. So it's actually just a straight line down there after that hairpin in the top right. Take that straightaway all the way down to what is called Knickerbrook. So Foster's there is kind of the corner down the middle, but that one little bump there that you see that instead of running the traditional version of Knickerbrook where you run it like a slow right-hander, there's a little chicane in there. We're running that chicane, and that chicane is called Hislop. So that chicane will be on our track, so you'll see that when we get going, and then you go up Clay Hill under the bridge there through Druid's Corner, a nice passing zone for sure. Once you can get the run off the apex there, it's one of the more fun corners on the track. Then under Warwick Bridge up to Lodge Corner. Lodge Corner is an absolutely brutal downhill right-hander that can, on cold tires, absolutely wipe the car out and certainly take you out of commission early in a race. So definitely something drivers will have to be thinking about. But after that, Deer Leap is the downhill, uphill left-hander back to the start-finish line, where we begin another one of our 35 laps in tonight's race. Well, that being said, though, that is your information about tonight's track at Oulton Park. Oh goodness, we have all sorts of graphics left out from earlier. Let's just take those down and get you the most important ones that you need before tonight's race. Well, the first thing we need to go to is the championship point standings. Now, important to mention, tonight we have 2 sets of points we have to display. Not only do we have the traditional championship points, that is, every driver's total added up points over the entire season, but we also need to show you the points after this. So this is the traditional championship points. This is every driver's points added up until now. Of course, Logan Pacza, your championship points leader, currently sitting with 360 points. Andrew Bedrossian there in second with 304. Trevor Anderson and Max Preston tied for third. Max Preston actually has the tiebreaker, as he has the best individual points finish, as he did win a race at Mosport earlier this season. So technically Max Preston would go second, and then Trevor Anderson would go, he'd go third, Anderson would go fourth. And then Tim Salvatore sits fifth after that with 251. Carl Dronke sits with 248 after winning in Indianapolis in the double points race. David Pacza then with 231. Marshall Crocker with 202 and 8th. Manuel Guerra sits 9th with 197. Caleb Campbell sits 10th with 191. Then you can read down the rest of the board there yourself, as I got to get off to the next points as well. But most important thing to mention is look at the close mid-pack battle there from about 3rd to really 6th, maybe 7th there in the points. Only 11 points separating the drivers in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, though it's definitely close. Certainly the potential for anybody to take home 3rd place in the points heading into tonight's event. And that's not even to mention the championship battle up at the top with Andrew Bedrossian sitting, a decent ways back, 56 points of Logan Pacza in that points table, but certainly the potential to catch up tonight if he can get a win here at Oulton Park. We got to show the other championship points as well. Can't just show the one. So this is the championship points when you add the 2 drop races. So this season we are going to be having 2 drop races all throughout the year. It's to allow drivers that miss a couple races due to whatever reason. Maybe they're busy with another engagement. Maybe they just don't like a track and don't make it out. So each driver has 2 drop races they get to take, either their 2 worst or the 2 that they missed, or a combination of both. So when you include those races, the championship points get a little bit more interesting up there at the top. Of course, Logan Pacza is still your points champion. He's made it to every race and he leads in the points, so it's not like anybody's going to dethrone the champion, but currently he sits with 302 points, and then Andrew Bedrossian has 264. So if you take out his races like at Mostport, and I'm trying to think what other race, maybe Belle Isle, but ones that would have been his worst of the season, he gets to lose less points than Logan Pacza does, and as a result he gets a little bit closer there in the championship. So he sits second with 264, but in this standings, Max Preston is only 5 points out of second. And remember, this is what is actually going to be the end of season championship points. So Max Preston tonight, who's been on a roll as of late, well, he's very close to potentially moving up into that number 2 spot, or maybe even chasing down Logan Pacza with a win tonight. Then Trevor Anderson and Tim Salvatore round out the top 5. Carl Drunke there in 6th, David Paxton 7th, and then all the usual down from there. You guys have seen the points previous, so you kind of get the gist of what they are going to look like tonight. But now it is time to get into qualifying, and well, qualifying has had its fair share of exciting moments here in our series in the past, but first we're going to go on board with the guy that has given us a fair share of those exciting moments throughout the season. Here is Mr. Andrew Bedrossian, there in the number 5 car that he calls Eleanor, running that kind of Ferrari tribute livery. He's had an up and down season, to be sure. He's certainly had probably more great moments in this series than anybody else has. You talk about the poles he's had. He's won so many practice races, including one over myself last night. So he has been quick all season, but he's been unable to convert that into a win so far this year, which is insane, because when you combine this and the previous season of the Cards to Computers series that I used to run, and that this is the spiritual successor to, he's now gone a full season without a win, despite arguably being the fastest driver in the series, you could say. So he's certainly been having a go of it this year, and tonight might be his night. Again, he's been so consistent this week throughout practice. Everybody really on track besides him was making mistakes, so it'll be exciting to see if he can translate that into a win tonight. Now you're seeing the sectors coming up for these drivers running their first laps. Tanner Dignard actually running 2 of the fastest sectors of anybody there on the first lap, so we'll see if he can carry that over into his first lap. But Logan Pacza is actually just ahead of Andrew Bedrossian, so those 2 drivers are the first on track to run their qualifying laps. Remember, for those of you that don't remember how the qualifying graphics work, they show up in the order of the next driver to cross the line. So left is the driver that's next to run a lap, and then further right is the next couple drivers on track. So we won't see Logan Pacza and Andrew Bedrossian show up there for a minute until they come around the layout here. You see Logan getting a little bit slippery there and almost losing the back end there coming out of the hairpin corner. But yeah, so once they do start to run their sectors, green sectors mean it's a personal best for that driver. So there are 6 sectors here at Oulton Park. It means in that particular section they haven't run better all throughout qualifying. Purple means it is the best anybody has run in that sector all session, and yellow just means it is neither. They didn't improve upon either. So you see there Logan Pacza now pops up onto the screen as he is the 3rd next driver to come up to the line. He's now run a personal best in sector 1 and 5, in fact the best of anybody, but he has run worse than he did on his first lap in sectors 2, 3, and 4. A car there is, I believe Rich Foligno is going to move aside. Sorry, that's Jack Hillier is going to move aside to let them by. Andrew Bedrossian, on the other hand, has run fastest and for his personal best of every sector except for 6, in which he is the best overall. So Logan Pacza will run the first time of the session. Let's see what he puts up on the board there. Andrew Bedrossian runs a 126.236. Logan Pacza does not register a time on that lap, it would appear. So Carl Drunke is going to go second. He's going to put up a 126.8. So not a bad time, really. If you can get in the 126s on your first lap, you have the potential to have a great qualifying session. And well, we'll see if Logan Pacza will be able to improve this lap. Caleb Campbell in the 11 car is going to run not a flying time there. I'd imagine he probably didn't take a running start there on lap 1. Might have just been one of those pit box things. If you have a late pit box, you don't run a full lap. I know Caleb is certainly faster than that. At least he was in practice, so I'm sure that time will move up the board in just a moment once he runs another lap. Justin Lulick just comes across the line, but I don't believe his time will register this lap either. Max Preston will be next across, and now you see the two front leaders there moving up the order. Now Max Preston's going to go up. Whoops, that is not the right screen. There we go. Max Preston is now going to move up the order, so he runs his lap. Let's see where the number 6 car goes. He does not go anywhere currently. His time will not register, but Marshall Crocker will run his lap. Going to go 4th currently. We'll see if he'll be able to improve upon that next lap. Here comes Logan Pacza. Maybe we'll go to a bit of an alternative camera angle here. Is all sorts of cameras we have at our disposal here as he comes through the final couple of corners. This downhill, uphill left-hander. Oh, that was on the screen. Oh, there we go. So he comes up the left-hander. Let's see if the number 16 car will improve. Andrew Bedrossian will improve. He's going to go up to 126.1, and Logan doesn't register an actual lap once again. His time will not count, so Logan maybe just narrowly dropping a tire off the track here and there, or something along those lines, because it's now the second time it's happened in this race, and certainly uncharacteristic for the 16 car, so see what's up with him. Let's go to Trevor Anderson, though, for the time being, who is yet another driver who's had a very successful season to this point. His last lap did not count, but this one might. David Pacza will run his first lap of the session. He's going to go 3rd there with some time in the mid-127s. So here is Trevor Anderson. Let's go get an eye on, well, Justin Lewick's going to run a lap, but Max Preston as well. So Lewick is going to go 5th. He's going to go behind Caleb Campbell there out of the top 5. Now here is Max Preston coming up the hill towards the start-finish line. Will he improve his time? He will. He's going to go to 3rd, so running a low 127. That'll put him above David Pacza there, and he'll bump Justin Lewick out of the top 5 for the time being. Remember the battle that Lewick and Preston had there at Detroit Belle Isle. Now we're going to go back up to Pacza and Bedrossian, though. We'll see what kind of times they're going to be able to improve with. Logan has run the best sector of anybody in sectors 3 and 6, actually 7 sectors here at Oulton Park. Andrew ran the best of anybody in 1 and 2. Logan, can he get up a time on this lap? Looks like he will. Where will that run? Won't run anywhere, but Andrew Bedrossian will move up to a 125.6, so that'll put him a full second clear of Carl Dronke in 2nd. Carl has really taken to this track this week in practice, but again, the question is why aren't Logan Pacza's laps counting? Still has yet to even put himself up on the board to this point. Tanner Dignard will run a lap and put himself 4th for the time being. Just narrowly avoids leapfrogging Max Preston there for 3rd, so pretty competitive qualifier to this point, but Dignard is going to lose a tire there off the track and send it away into corner number 3, so unfortunate luck there for Tanner Dignard. But here is Trevor Anderson, who just ran up to 3rd, just narrowly, but a 1/10 of a second off of Carl Dronke, so he'll go 3rd. He's drafting down Caleb Campbell, might give him some help here on the straightaway into this corner number 4, and his attempt to run a quick lap, and Caleb will stay ahead for the time being. Manuel Guerra runs a time, but so does Justin Lewick. So Manuel goes to 7th, but Justin immediately leapfrogs him back into 7th position. So the only 4 drivers yet to run a time here in this session are Logan Pacza, Jack Hillier, Tim Salvatore, and Rich Foligno. I might show up in the graphics tonight, but again, as always, I am your commentator in the booth, not a driver running on track. Tim Salvatore does get a time down. He is going to go to 7th, so just a half a tenth ahead of Justin Lewick there. Tim has, he wasn't here last week in last week's race, but he makes his return tonight at Oulton Park. We'll see what kind of pace he can put down. He's certainly there in the battle for 3rd and potentially 2nd in the championship, depending on what he does tonight. But Logan finally gets a lap down, goes to the pole temporarily, but is immediately leapfrogged there by Andrew Bedrossian. Logan running a time of 125.624. Immediately, Andrew comes back at him with a 125.605. So these guys have been competitive for poles all season, and it just happens in every session, whether it be a race session, you know, a practice session, qualifying, doesn't matter. These guys are virtually inseparable there on track, and they come so close to each other in every session. So it's always a pleasure to watch. Trevor Anderson just ran a lap there, but will not improve. But who will improve is David Pacza is going to move himself there into the top 5. Only 36 thousandths of a second behind Trevor Anderson, so very narrowly avoids moving up there into 4th even further. But not a bad lap for him at all. Justin Lewick is going to jump to 3rd there on the timing board. The 7 car having a great qualifying session as of right now. Manuel Guerra, I think, just finished the lap as well. Looks like he moved up. Now Tim Salvatore will be the next driver across the line. The 91 maroon entry is going to come down and up the left-hand turn there across the start-finish line. What will he run? Will he improve from 9th? Looks like he will not. So he is going to stay where he was, but again, Logan Pacza is coming around again. He was fastest in Sector 1. Guys have been trading that sector back and forth all race. Andrews got another one in 6th, so let's see. Can Logan improve back to the top of the board? He will. He's going to go 125.4. Where will Andrew go? Just misses him. Gets into the 125.4s, but is just less than a tenth off. So those guys are fighting back and forth for that top spot. Now I think one more, maybe two more. No, it'll be one more eligible lap for both these guys. So this is their final chance to take the pole. Andrew has taken more than Logan this season, but you know that Logan is going to fight for everything he has to take this one. Now, Trevor and Max are both in the pits, so Anderson and Preston will not move up from their current spots. But back on track. Let's see if Justin Lewis can maybe improve on his lap. He kind of jumped there into the third spot. But speaking of the third spot, David Pacza puts himself third. Got to think the tires and track conditions are working themselves up. These guys are getting faster and faster on every lap. Justin looks like he won't improve. He was slower than his personal best in every sector, so he is going to have to stay fourth. And he does get one more lap this lap, though, so the potential for him to improve. Manuel Guerra runs a time but does not improve. And Jack Hillier is going to run a lap. Will he put himself on the board as he comes down the right-hander, up the left-hander? A little bit off the pace there in the 18 car, but he is going to finish the lap. So across the line, maybe puts himself 11th or 12th. Might move up that far in the pack. Tim Salvatore is going to jump Max Preston, so he'll move up to 7th. Hillier did not run a lap, but Logan Pacza is about to come across the line. Down and up the left-hander here across the line. Will the 16 improve his time as Andrew looks to beat it? Actually, Andrew's gone to the pits, so Logan Pacza looks like he will not improve. Maybe Andrew just slipped up on his lap, decided not to run another one. Now Marshall Crocker Sr. is going to run his final lap. Will he improve? I don't think he will, unless the timing information is wrong. Rich Foligno hasn't run a lap yet to this point. He's going to come up and down the final left-hander. Probably isn't going to jump him too far up the board, but he might put himself at least on the timing screen, and that's really all you got to do at this point in qualifying. Where will the 99 car will qualify 11th, so his colors are going to be a little bit off tonight. He ran a different paint scheme than was expected, but he will go 11th for the time being, so not bad. At least he moves himself up there out of the bottom. I just want every driver to get a lap down, because since I accidentally put myself in this session, I might qualify ahead of somebody if they do not run a time. So Jack Hillier, the only driver with the potential to run another one, but he has gone off track in turn number 9, so looks like he will not improve. And that should be it. I believe every driver has run their final potential lap. Nobody's still running a hot lap. Tanner Dignard's still on track, but don't believe his lap will count. So, that being said, we are going to wait just a moment until we have the information we need to officially give you your qualifying results, but let's just pull the graphics down and wait until we can get up the proper results from qualifying. But I'll just ask before we get everything all set to go for the proper race now that qualifying is over and Logan Pacza has taken the pole. Is everything good on the broadcast side of things? Again, new computer, all sorts of new settings. I know I was having some mic troubles, but hopefully the mic's coming through okay. And yeah, if you guys have anything you want to mention, if it looks better, be sure to let me know. If there's any problems that you want me to fix, be sure to let me do the same. So now it's time to get ready. And well, I can't wait to see how things go here in the race. I know it's something different than the last couple weeks. We kind of experimented with some crazy stuff. We went to, of course, Indianapolis for double points. We went to Detroit for a double race. Now it's time to see what we have when we go back to the more traditional style of things here at Oulton Park. But that being said, let's put up your grid once we are able. We are now able to show you your official race grid here for round number 9 at Oulton Park. Why it always likes to start way down the order. So let's get that properly set up for you here. There we go. So we are properly set up now. Let's go to your pole sitter and put him on screen, Mr. Logan Pacza, for the second or third time this season. It's not like it's its first, but Andrew has taken more of them this season than he has. So big position here from Logan, or big performance here to take it at Oulton Park. But there is your pole sitter in your front row, Mr. Logan Pacza, running a 125.412 time. And that number 16 car to his outside, Andrew Bedrossian in the number 5. In the next row, David Pacza will start in third, right behind his son on track there in the 53 car, running just over a second behind. To his outside, Justin Luke there in the 7 car will start fourth. Carl Dronke will start fifth there in the 38 car. Of course, your winner at Indianapolis. He's put himself into the fight for the top 5, potentially top 3 spots in the championship. So this will be a big race for the number 38. And then in 6th, the Mr. Trevor Anderson running in the 25 car. Will start to his outside. Tim Salvatore will begin row number 4 there in the 91 with Max Preston to his outside. Both guys that are going to be fighting for the number 3 spot in the championship. Tanner Dignard will start 9th with Manuel Guerra to his outside on row number 5. Then on the next row, let's just move down a little bit. Then on the next row, Rich Foligno will start in 11th with Marshall Crocker to his outside in 12th. Caleb Campbell will start in 13th, and though I do appear on the graphic, I assure you guys I am just in the booth. I have no actual stake in this race. But that means that Jack Hillier will effectively start 14th, but he will have to start behind Caleb Campbell on track. Actually, I think they give him my grid spot, so he'll be starting 14th effectively, will Jack Hillier. And that will round out your points for tonight's race at Oulton Park. Well, we are ready to get going here, folks, and hopefully you guys are all excited. Be sure to let me know down there in the chat if there's anybody in particular you're cheering for, anything you want me to mention, any questions you have about the track, anything you're looking forward to. This is just, well, it's how we get to communicate with each other, and it's always great to communicate with you guys at home. I know I don't have a co-commentator here, so it's always a pleasure to have some people to talk to, certainly. But now we are good to go. The pace car is off, and the cars are now getting gridded and ready to go. So looks like back in the field, Manuel Guerra has actually gone around here to start off this session. Hopefully he gets up to speed. No, the game was just lying to me, it would appear. Looks like he is in good condition. So there's your board up on the top left. Of course, again, I am not actively in the race, so that one is a lie. Unless we do an all-star race this season, you won't actually see me on the graphic all year. There we go. The drivers are warming up their tires, doing the swerves left and right, back and forth to try to get some heat in the tires, get some grip for themselves for lap number 1. Of course, when they begin to try to chase each other down, everything gets a little bit more intense, and the best tires are available to yourself. They're going to come into the final corner. Logan is going to let the pace car take a little bit of a run, and he will get ready to go. Round number 9 of the Snowstorm Open Wheel Racing Series starts now. Green flag is out. Logan will lead the field to green here at Oulton Park. He will take the lead there into turn number 1. Andrew Bedrossian just going to slot in behind. Same with David Pacza behind him. Justin Lewick, then Trevor Anderson, Carl Drunke will pile up. Speaking of pile-ups, we've already had a crash there further back in the field. Tim Salvatore has been involved. Tanner Dignard is involved. Manuel Guerra as well. Jack Hillier is not involved. He moves up the track ahead, so caution will come out immediately on lap 1. And again, Tim Salvatore as well as Tanner Dignard, who is sliding through the grass there in turn number 3 as we speak, are all involved. Turn number 1, immediate chaos. And I mean, Tim Salvatore returning to the series tonight, he does have quick repairs in his arsenal, but man, that was not the way he wanted to start his first race back in the Snowstorm series. So let's get a better idea of what happened to him there. We'll actually start with the cockpit view. We don't usually start with this all too often here in this series, but let's get going there with his feed. Sorry, just gotta. There we go. So here is the view on board the number 91 car here of Tim Salvatore. So looking to his left, that's Carl Drunke. You don't really see anything from his perspective. He gets just piled into there by whoever that was to his outside. Let's get that from another perspective. Because, yeah, that just kind of came out of nowhere for the 91 car. Not too sure what happened there. This camera is a decent view, but I think it switches in the middle. So let's try to get a better one that'll be more helpful in explaining what happened. So there's Tanner Dignard, I guess, who just, I don't know, tries to cut in there through turn number 1, gets a little bit too close there on the outside, and the two make side-by-side contact. Go to maybe a chopper camera, might give us a better story, but again, a Carts to Computer series staple that has now become a Snowstorm Open Wheel Racing series staple there with the stupid trees that get in the way of the broadcast, so makes it tough to tell what's happening. But again, here is the 91 car of Tim Salvatore, gets through the corner. I don't know what happened there. He kind of rode the curb very aggressively on entry. Meant that he was going to have an awkward angle on exit getting out of the corner. We'll show it one more time. But I'm not sure what happened there to Tanner Dignard. But you see coming out of the corner, I mean, side by side with Preston, and by the time he makes contact, Preston has cleared him by a bunch of car lengths. So very unusual circumstances there for Salvatore, and then just catches Manuel Guerra there at the very end and sends him around. So, well, 3-car collision will start tonight's event. And that means that we will be going to a restart here next time we get on track. So the lights in the pace car are on, meaning we have 2 laps at minimum. We have to wait before we get going again, but Logan Pacza will remain your current leader. Not too many positions changed throughout the field, besides, of course, those that passed the guys that crashed. Those include Mr. Rich Foligno there, who has moved up 3 spots. Actually, we'll put it on the timing tower. So there are the position changes after that very first lap, and really very first 2 corners before the caution came out there. So Rich Foligno will move up 3 spots there as a result of the incident. Marshall Crocker will move up 3 spots. Caleb Campbell will move up 3 spots here. Let's get a better angle that shows them. So the 15 car there, that red, white, and blue, and partially orange number 15 entry, that's Marshall Crocker. Rich Foligno in the 99 number, darker blue and red car, a different livery for him tonight. And then, as always, running the Oreo livery is Caleb Campbell, who's moved up 3 spots as well. Finally, Jack Hillier there, running the black Mercedes livery that they ran in F1 this season. He moves up 4 spots there as a result, although I guess really only 3, because that would include myself, who has seemingly lost a spot despite not being in the actual event. Speaking of not being in the actual event, Tim Salvatore appears to have left the race entirely after that very first lap collision. He has quick repairs, so unless he had some sort of tech problem, maybe his pedals desynced. I was wondering what happened there, why his pace was so slow going into the corner, so maybe that would explain it. But Tanner Dignard and Manuel Guerra are going to be a lap down, more than likely, if they can't exit the pits soon. But they are still in the event. Here's the track map tonight at Oulton Park. As you can see, the number, that is the 55 of Tanner Dignard and the number 12 of Manuel Guerra are still in the pits, so we will have to wait for them. But maybe let's do a little bit of a through the field just so you can get used to the cars and the liveries of these drivers on track tonight. That way you can recognize them for the rest of the race. There is Logan Pacza, as always, running in the number 16 livery. He's your, of course, championship points leader. He's had a great season at this point, again winning 5 races, but surprisingly close in the championship points despite that. Nobody else has multiple race wins other than himself, but he's still fairly close in points with a couple of those guys around him, namely Mr. Andrew Bedrossian, who sits behind him in 5th. So, of course, this is the Turl number 16 blue and yellow livery of Logan Pacza. Now, here is the Ferrari custom livery of Mr. Andrew Bedrossian there in the number 5 car. Of course, he calls it Eleanor there. You got the, I believe it is a Betty Boop PNG he's put on the front. After that, David Pacza running kind of a comic book themed styled livery here. One of the more interesting cars in the field, the number 53 car of David Pacza. Then you got Justin Lewick running the Dams F2 livery there in the number 7 car. That is the kind of teal, turquoisey looking car that currently sits in 4th. Currently sitting in 5th is the Anaheim Ducks entry of Trevor Anderson. He actually designed this himself. Interestingly enough, before I ever knew Trevor and before he ever ran in the series, I saw this this paint scheme online and thought it looked really cool, and I was wishing there were more NHL logos available, but funny enough, he made this himself, and then I met him in this series and he brought it over and I found out he was the one that made it. So Trevor is a jack of all trades, clearly, as he's just as good at designing cars as he is at racing them. But he currently sits in 5th. Carl Dronke here runs in the dark number 38 car, the dark brown on the primary aspects of the car, and then orange on the secondary elements. So he currently sits in 6th. Max Preston running the black and orange Hooters livery there in the number 6 car. Rich Felino now runs the number 99 car. I think it's a Labatt Blue entry, so I believe the only beer car in the field, which racing as a motorsports really as a medium are full of them, so kind of a surprise we only have one in the field. But after that, Marshall Crocker running an old Williams livery. I think that's the Williams 1999 entry? I'm not exactly sure what year that would have been from, but it was certainly well before my time. Caleb Campbell, after that, running in 10th, running in the number 11 Oreo car, again, one of my personal favorites in the field. And then Jack Hillier, the last car that currently sits on the lead lap, to my knowledge. Let's just put up the timing tower to confirm that. Yes, so only now is Manuel Guerra leaving the pits. Tanner Dignard has already as well, so we'll put back up the gaps and see if Tanner Dignard is on the lead lap. He is not, so 2 laps down for Dignard, Guerra, and Salvatore. And Salvatore in the number 91 car there. He didn't leave the session, actually. I thought he had. It said that he did, but looks like he is back, and hopefully he's got whatever was wrong for him finished now that we are back and good to go. So there is Jack Hillier, of course, Tanner Dignard. Manuel Guerra there returns to the track in the number 12 Bad League Motorsports car, run by his brother John Guerra, who did not make it to tonight's race. And finally, Tim Salvatore there running the 91 Race in Canada car. It's pretty cool. The only Patriotic Canada livery in the field. Got to represent, seeing as most of the series is Canadian, and of course, myself, you could say it's a Canadian series at heart, but we do have a variety of American drivers as well as our Portuguese representative, Mr. Manuel Guerra. The lights on the pace car are still on, and we got 1 lap to go. We are going to quickly send it to a quick commercial break just so we can get things up and running, and better to take breaks now for water earlier rather than later. Tim Salvatore will move up to 12th under the pace car, or maybe he won't. Maybe they just checked up there a little bit. But we're going to go on board with our championship leader, Logan Pacza. We're going to go side by side for just a moment, and we'll be back for the first restart of tonight's race. And we're back after a very brief break here under the pace car for our first caution of the night. Of course, as always, we are going to be calling hopefully very minimal caution throughout tonight's race. We try to keep it to a minimum if possible, as well, the more cautions, the less actual racing action, and that's kind of what we're hoping for here at Oulton Park. But thank you everybody for the heads up there in the chat about the engine volume. I tried to turn it up a little bit louder. I know sometimes it can by default be pretty quiet, but it's hard to find a happy medium, so hopefully it sounds good the rest of the way, and we can balance it out quite nicely. But glad to see that the graphics appear to look great for you guys at home. With the new computer, it allows me to turn up a bunch of arguably unnecessary stuff that usually most broadcasts wouldn't even try to include. Lots of things like shadows and lighting coming off of the cars and stuff like that. So you can just bump that up to the max, see what happens, and hopefully it looks good for all of you guys at home. But with that being said, the lights in the pace car are off, meaning we're going to go green for lap number 5 in just a moment. Of course, Logan Pacza remains your race leader with Andrew Bedrossian in second and David Pacza in third. Let's talk about him for a moment, as David Pacza has yet to score a top 3 this season, that being a podium. He's doing great in the championship standings, so it's not like he hasn't been in successful positions throughout the year. It's just hasn't quite broken through into those top 3 spots as of yet. Of course, his son Logan Pacza is the championship points leader, so you got to think his dad is going to be doing whatever he can to keep up there and maybe put a different Pacza in the top 3 and maybe even the winner's circle by the end of the race. Justin Lulick, of course, is another driver we should talk about before we get going here. Justin Lulick there in the 7 car, got his first podium of the season last week at Detroit, I think in race 1 of the doubleheader. Had a really good finish there, actually, with Max Preston there. Photo finish for those two gentlemen. Max Preston currently starting in 7th there in the number 6 car, ways back, sitting actually 3rd in the points if you take into account the drop races. So Max has had a great season for himself so far, could put himself 2nd ahead of Andrew Bedrossian, depending on how he finishes tonight. But, well, you got to think Andrew is going to do whatever he can to beat Logan to the line tonight and try to close that gap that he's got up to Logan, about 40 points worth, separating him from 1st in the championship. This is the nose of Andrew Bedrossian, looking down the back end of that number 16 Turl blue and yellow entry for Logan Pacza's car. The pace car is going to head off in just a moment, so we got to get started. The pace car is going to head up the line, so Logan Pacza is once again the control car. Green flag comes out at Oulton Park. Rather quick green flag here at Oulton Park. They head off quite early into turn 1, so Logan Pacza heads off with Andrew Bedrossian chasing him down through turn 1. Logan got a little bit wide. He goes off the track. The 16 car loses the back end. Cold tires, only 1 car involved, so we aren't even going to throw a yellow unless he involves another car, which he hasn't. So Logan Pacza, yesterday in the practice race, something very similar happened. Put himself around there in practice. So Logan Pacza will drop to the back of the lead lap. Hopefully he can keep that car up to speed before the next caution or qualifying or pit cycle, so we can get some damage fixed on that car. But that is going to have huge implications on this race. You saw there he just lost the back end along the curbing, so we're not going to go to a replay. We got lots of action we got to show first. Tanner Digger further back in the field will pass Manuel Guerra, but this is the battle for 2nd. Pax is going to go side by side with Justin Lulick down the hill into turn number 7. Lulick's got the outside, Pax has got the inside. They're going to go side by side, almost touch wheels. What a run there through the chicane. Both guys managed to go side by side, but Trevor Anderson is peeking there. He thought about the inside line there on Justin Lulick, but what a piece of driving there from the 53 and the 7. Side by side is not easy to do here in these cars, and they made it work there. So more than props to the two of those gentlemen. Further back in the field, Trevor Anderson's going to go wide. That'll give the spot to Max Preston, who is going to move ahead of him up into the 4th spot. Now that battle we saw in race 1 at Detroit is going to reform again between Preston and Lulick, as well as Carl Dronke is going to move ahead of Trevor Anderson. So all sorts of action happening here early in this race, I should say. Tim Salvatore has moved up ahead of Logan Pacza, who did come into the pits and loses a lap. So, well, through turn number 1 comes Carl Dronke. Let's look up a little bit further ahead in the field. That's Justin Lulick again battling with Max Preston down the hill into turn number 3. That little kink there to the right is turn number 2. Technically, Lulick kind of had a little bit of a bobble there in the back end, so he's going to lose a run. He's going to go side by side with Preston out of turn 3. This long straightaway down into the left-hand kink that is turn 4. Carl Dronke right behind there in the 38 car. He's kind of got his easy pick of which lane he wants to take. For the time being, he's going to stay behind both of them. Max Preston does make the move on Justin Lulick, so new driver in the 3rd position there is Max Preston. David Pacza is trying to move ahead, still holding on to 2nd spot and taking off from the drivers behind as they battle. So one Pacza may be out of the top 10 for the time being as Logan gets his damage repaired, but we still have a Pacza in the podium positions. But there's Max Preston, Justin Lulick, Carl Dronke after that. and Trevor Anderson. Let's look back in the field a little way, see if there's any battles. That is Rich Foligno there coming out of turn number 9, that little inner chicane there. It's tough to identify the corners here because there are so many little ones. But that 99 Labatt Blue entry of Rich Foligno being chased down by the 11 of Caleb Campbell, doing his very best to keep up through this kind of woodland forest, lots of tree coverage, tight section with all sorts of little intricate corners and elevation changes. Up a little ways further, Justin Lulick has got around there, so is Carl Dronke. Both drivers are involved. We got to get a better idea of what happened, but not considerable damage there to the 7 car, nor the 38 of Carl Dronke. He'll get back up to speed, but the 15 car of Marshall Crocker Sr. is going to go by the both of them. Both back up to speed, so no caution, but what happened to those two gentlemen? Justin's going to duck into the pits. We're going to go to a quick replay there before we get back in time for the rest of the action on this lap, as we've been seeing plenty of on-track chaos and action for this start to the stint. So there's the 38 of Dronke getting side by side with the 7 of Lulick and just kind of clipped him, but in such a way that Carl also took damage. I don't really know how they got in that spot. It looked like they both left each other room, and it's a thin corner there, that number 11 turn down into down onto the front stretch, but really not sure what happened there. I mean, Lulick squeezed him a little bit, but man, it was close. I'm really confused as to why Carl's car lost control as well. Maybe clipped the front right wing or something along those lines, but whatever happened, they went around for at least a moment. Justin Lulick is back on track there. You see that number 7 car is number 9 on the track map, so not too far back behind the rest of the field, but Carl Dronke is still on track and is battling for 7th with Marshall Crocker Sr. right ahead of him. But back up for position. This is the 2nd place battle between David Pacza and Max Preston. The 53 car has the 6 all over his rear bumper, and it's been an incredible season there for Max Preston so far, so you got to think that he wants to continue his run up the championship order, and with Logan Pacza out of the race, at least for the time being, he's still there, but running 14th currently. This could be a huge opportunity for Andrew Bedrossian and Max Preston. Bedrossian has just checked out. You see there on the track map, that number 1 red dot is just flying. He's taken off, but Max is forcing David the inside line, which isn't bad, but it's going to give him a horrible run off the corner. Max kind of had to check out to give him room, and of course you don't want to push it too hard that you risk a collision this early in the race, but you got to think Max wants that spot as quick as possible to try to go chase down Andrew. Gets a little bit wide there through the kinks, so he will have to wait and regroup there. Now going to go to the outside of David Pacza. As long as he can get a better run, might not be a bad move. He does get a pretty good run. He'll be in the slipstream down the straightaway here, so David Pacza just got to keep his eyes forward and do his very best to hold that spot. But there you see the 6 car right on the back of him, doing whatever he can to find room. He's going to go to the outside here as we come down towards the Hislop chicane. Going to go side by side once again. Preston's going to slide through. Pacza's going to lock up the tires. So Preston goes off track, gets on pretty quick, and won't have a penalty for it, but man, just a slight miscommunication there between those two guys. Maybe Preston checked up with too much momentum, or Pacza forced him wide, but whatever happened, Mr. David Pacza remains in the 2nd place spot. So who is behind him? That is not a lead lap car, from what I can tell. That's Tim Salvatore. So Tim Salvatore, who currently runs 11th, is going to let Trevor Anderson by. And again, where did Trevor Anderson come out of? You know, the guy that started 6th, he kind of came from nowhere. He's been having a great season. He, of course, won last week at Belle Isle, but qualified in a spot that certainly wouldn't have made it easy to be up to 3rd this early in the race, but he's doing so and is now going to attempt to track down David Pacza for 2nd. Let's go back to Max Preston, who has returned to the track. He currently sits 6th without any noticeable damage, but he does drop back to 6th behind Caleb Campbell for the time being. So Rich Foligno and Caleb Campbell in the top 5, but speaking of Caleb Campbell, loses the back end there through turn number 3. Just dips a tire there, I think, into either the inside or the outside grass, and that was enough to lose himself grip. Does a good job to get off the track. Lets Carl Dronke and Marshall Crocker Sr. by very narrowly. But they will make a bye, so Marshall Crocker will move up to 5th. Carl Dronke will move back up to 6th after starting 5th. And Rich Foligno's had a great start to the race for himself. That number 99 Labatt blue car, new entry, new livery, is working for him. He's now trying to chase down, well, that's Tim Salvatore ahead, who's not for position, but after that it's Trevor Anderson, who is kind of on a conquest in his own right now, about 1.4 seconds back of David Pacza ahead. So some great battles up here up front in the field, but we've seen definitely some top name leaders already going out with incidents early in this race. So you gotta try to hope as the tires get worse and you lose more and more grip that you don't become the next car to suffer a similar fate. This is Justin Lulick now. We haven't really talked about much throughout the race. Of course, you remember his incident earlier with Carl Dronke through the final corner where he had to come into the pits to get repairs, hence why he does sit 49 seconds back of the lead. Certainly not because of pace. He's been very quick all season. He was quick in qualifying, started all the way up there in 4th. So we know he has the potential to be quick, and if we get another caution, might be able to reel himself back into the field and move up some more spots. Now this is Carl Drunke, the closest on-track battle, currently between himself and Marshall Crocker, but the 38 car seems to be pulling ahead pretty easily. You actually can't see the 15 car a little ways back in the shot currently. So the 15 car is going to let Caleb Campbell by there, and the 11 car on his inside. He's also going to let the lap car of Manuel Guerra by as well. So through turn 1, he's now going to try to chase down the 11 car, but Caleb Campbell has been quick now that he's returned to the track after spinning briefly just a moment ago in this exact corner here in turn number 3. So good to see he has recovered. The 11 car has had a great season at this point, and another guy that comes out to pretty much every practice, always looking for an opportunity to find more time. So happy to see Caleb Campbell finding success. Now this is turn number 7, 8, 9, this return chicane here, where David Pacza continues to try to hold off the number 25 car of Trevor Anderson. Got his first win of the season last week, again trying to get his second this week. Could become the first multi-race win driver tonight, as well as a couple other guys in the field. But Andrew Bedrossian, who we need to talk about as we wait for this battle to develop for second between Pacza and Anderson. Andrew Bedrossian in the 5 car has just checked himself out. He took the opportunity with Logan Pacza spinning to take over first, and since then he has not looked back. Just absolutely dominant as the number 5 car here. He's taken off, and again, the one major thing he's got to look out for is a mistake that all week guys have been making, but he just hasn't. In practice, he wasn't slipping up. I raced him yesterday, and on the last lap in an attempt to make the pass on himself, even I couldn't get him. So it made a mistake myself and put myself around. So anybody has the potential to do it. And Andrew is going to try to be as locked in as he can, because the opportunity to get his first win of the season has arguably never been as in his hands as it is right now. So the 5 car will continue to try to do his thing. Let's go back a little bit further in the field. Now only 9 cars sit on the lead lap, but the first car a lap down is currently Tim Salvatore there in the 91. He's got quite a ways to go to the car sitting in 9th. That's Justin Luke there. You see the blue car with the red dot around it on the track map. So he's got a long way to go, but he's just going to do whatever he can to stay on only a lap down. And if we get a caution and he can get a wave around, might be able to move up a little bit further in the field. But back to the on-track battles. This battle between David Pacza and Trevor Anderson might come to a head in just a moment. You see how close Trevor's got here as he exits turn number 10. Up the left-hander under the bridge here into this, again, tricky section with lots of intricate little left and right-hand corners. Certainly not as full of long straightaways as the rest of the layout. So this is the more technical aspect, and Trevor raced very well at a very technical Belle Isle track last week. David Pacza, though, a very experienced racer in his own right, surely going to be just as able in that respect, but he's going to lose the back end a little bit coming through turn number 11. He's going to lose the run to Trevor Anderson, so Trevor's going to jump to the outside with the slipstream. Going to go side by side into turn 1. Will Trevor back out? No, he's going to send it in pretty deep. Both guys going to go side by side. Thank you, Trees, for that shot, but Trevor Anderson gets around, moves up to second. So Trevor Anderson, what a season he's been having to this point since he returned to the series in race 2. He has just been on rails, and another guy like Max Preston, who just seems to get better and better with time. Now he'll move up to second, again, just takes off from David Pacza once he makes the move. David Pacza's got to watch out, or else he might become victim to the number 99 car of Rich Foligno, who probably the most unlucky driver the entire series so far this season. He just appears to never get the luck he needs to put himself on the podium, though he may have the speed to do it. So tonight would be a huge race for Rich Foligno if he's able to take that final podium spot from David. But watch out, because Max Preston there in the 6 car, after an earlier incident there with, who I just mentioned, David Pacza, now that he's recovered since then and appears to have no noticeable damage, you got to think his momentum is going to be carrying him up through the field and maybe going to put himself back into yet another podium this season. Looking back throughout the field, Rich Foligno does get David Pacza. Where did David Pacza go? He's off the track. Loses an entire piece of that front wing. The 53 car I just talked about, the only real way to lose positions at this point, unless you give up a nice pass like Trevor Anderson made a moment ago, is to get into collisions. So let's see what happens to David Pacza. So that's Tim Salvatore there in the 91, the lap car behind him. Good buddies are Pacza and Salvatore, but I don't know, just gets a little bit too wide there, loses the back end. It's almost as though he tapped the dirt or the either the dirt or the grass in a previous corner. Maybe lost some rear end grip, which is what seemed to be the case that time. So loses control of the car, puts himself in the outside wall, and well, he's back up to speed, but he's going to lose a couple spots as a result. Probably wants to come into the pits this time, I would imagine. So he's back on track and head back down pit road. So he'll move into 6. Marshall Crocker Sr., as he comes up the hill, is going to take over 6 spots. So he's been slowly moving up through the field all race. Caleb Campbell is off the track a little ways further back. That's turn number 11 where he went around. What happened to Caleb Campbell? We got to keep an eye on so many drivers as we continue our way through this race. So he was a little bit in dirty air there behind Marshall Crocker Sr. Probably, again, just took the downforce off that number 11 car down the big vertical ascension and then descension of turn number 11. So you lose a little bit of grip, and something like that could happen. Doing donuts to try to get that thing flipped around, but now as we go live, he is back on track, doesn't send the thing into the pits, so presumably no major damage for the number 11 car. So again, things can change just as quickly as that. David Pacza, you saw him going around. He is now back on track, still in 8th, and now pits for both possibly fuel, but primarily for repairs. So he returns to the track, presumably as well on cold tires. So if that's the case, really going to want to keep those things minimally tested as possible. The more you test the cold tires here at a track as difficult as Oulton in some sections, it puts you at risk, certainly, and the last thing I want is for David to have a similar incident twice, so let's hope he doesn't have any more troubles for the rest of his stint. But there's Caleb Campbell behind him, who is for position, so the number 53 car can't get too complacent. He's got to worry about the very hungry number 11 driver behind him, who's had, again, a great season to this point, and is looking for his second top 5 of the year after getting one at Belle Isle last week. Back up to the battle for third, the closest on-track battle at this point. That is Trevor Anderson being chased down by Max Preston. We go to this very fun gearbox camera that shows out directly at the back of the number 99 car of Rich Foligno here. Rich again looking for his first podium of the season, and you know Max is going to do whatever he can to spoil that, as he's done for a couple drivers so far this season. Max is going to get a good run in the slipstream, in fact a really great one, but he's got to watch. You see just how much room he makes up here into the braking zone, but if he makes up too much room, he might risk putting himself around. Is he going to go around in this shot? He does, goes up the inside of the 99 car, side by side through turn number 10, but what a pass there by Max Preston. Look at all the ground he gained, like we saw it in that reverse shot. You saw how much ground he gained in the braking zone to Rich Foligno, so how he was able to carry all that but still have enough grip through the corner to get the pass done through the chicane. That was masterful work there by the number 6 car. Now he heads in the uphill, downhill right-hander of turn number 11 to continue his run through the field, now going after Trevor Anderson, who has had plenty of pace in his own right this race, and once we get one more lap, I'll probably show a lap time comparison between the 25 and the 6 car. But great move there by Preston, one of the best passes I've seen all season. Congratulations to Mr. Preston on that piece of driving. I'm trying to think of who else we should go to talk to for the time being, or at least go get a feed on. Let's go to Logan Pacza, who, since his incident earlier in the race there on lap number, I think, 5 there, the first lap after the yellow, he has been making his way through again. He's been trying to find pace and trying to find whatever drivers he can a lap down to move himself up through at the order. But just horrible luck there for the pole sitter. Maybe the pole sitter is just a bad, kind of a bad omen for drivers, as this season it seemed that whoever does get the pole is often at the mercy of bad luck throughout the race that follows it. So I don't know what's to be said for that, but Logan is showing that maybe that is once again the case, but he's doing his best to recover from that spot, trying to minimize the damage to the drivers ahead that are guys like, Andrew Bedrossian, Max Preston, Trevor Anderson, all of the guys in the top 3 who are fighting for that number 1 spot in the points, or at least the number 2 spot in the points right behind him. So this would be huge for him if he isn't able to recover. But again, it's Logan Pacza. He's your championship points leader for a reason, and got to think he's going to do whatever he can to make his way back throughout the order, back up throughout the order, I should say. Well, we'll go back to him for a minute because we have no conceivable battles on track, but man, Andrew Bedrossian just absolutely dominant in tonight's race. Let's put up the lap time comparison between himself and Trevor Anderson behind him. And you see there the comparison every lap except the last one, actually. Andrew has been quicker. Trevor Anderson ran a great time last lap, though, running about actually 0.003 of a second quicker, running a 1:26.508, and that is a great lap time for himself. So awesome job there by Trevor Anderson to make up that much time, and he's doing his best to try to run away from Max Preston behind him, you got to assume, but Max has been running quick lap times all race. Logan Pacza just made a move on Tanner Dignard. Looks like that was on track, but he is now broken away by a pretty considerable amount. So Logan is up to 11th, Tanner is down to 12th for the time being. But let's show that same comparison between Trevor Anderson and the guy chasing him down, Mr. Max Preston. So Max Preston was slower 3 of the last 5 laps, but I believe when you incorporate the fact that he was passing for position there on Rich Foligno, maybe not going to be as distinct of a difference as you'd think. Trevor did run his, again, fastest lap of the race so far, though, that last time by on lap 15. So Trevor's finding pace late in the run as his tires presumably get older. And that's certainly impressive, as by the time the tires start to fall off in lap number 10, you're losing grip every lap after. So the longer you go, the worse your chances to run a quick lap like that. And you see there, Trevor found a full second in 2 laps there that last time by, now running an almost identical lap time there. So Trevor is running quick. Let's see in just a couple seconds where Preston goes, just barely slower. So it's not like Preston's catching him now that he's cleared Rich Foligno. Maybe Trevor is a little bit more safe in that spot than I was giving him credit for. But how about for a couple corners, we just turn down the volume on the broadcast while we wait for another battle to pop up, and let's go on board for a moment with the number 25 car of Trevor Anderson. Well, there you see just how smooth that number 25 car of Trevor Anderson is, taking corner after corner and not even slightly faltering in any way. So it really speaks to, again, the consistency that he showed last week at Belle Isle that powered his way towards his first win of the year, followed by a very respectable second, just barely missing out on going 2 for 2 after Logan Pacza took the win. So he's found pace all season, but he's measured it very well and balanced it out with the ability to keep that car out of the wall. So it's working for him so far. But here is Jack Hillier, who I was just about to talk about. It said on my telemetry that he got involved in a wreck just a moment ago, but appears to have recovered. Doesn't seem to be off the pace or anything. So the 18 car back up to speed and still currently sits ahead of Manuel Guerra, who is also on track at the time. So we will see how his situation develops as the race goes on. Throughout the field, Max Preston isn't actually pulling away from Rich Foligno. You saw how impressive his move he made there through the chicane in turns 7, 8, and 9 was a moment ago. But since that pass, actually goes in the grass a little bit, just narrowly avoids Jack Hillier. But since that pass he made there through the chicane, he really hasn't pulled away all too considerably from Rich Foligno. So Rich, if he can make the time back up and start running a little bit quicker lap times as the tires start to fall off for the number 6 car of Max Preston, always the potential he could take back that number 3 spot before our green flag pit cycles begin. Speaking of green flag pit cycles, I would approximate you can probably go about 25 laps under a single tank of fuel. So it's not like it'll be very long before these guys come into the pits, but it is close enough that with enough cautions, you could almost theoretically go this entire race without stopping for anything. I think without stopping for tires would be a little bit risky. I would certainly not attempt to do that myself if I were racing, but drivers are more than welcome to run whatever strategy they would like. This is the battle for 6th here between Marshall Crocker Sr. and Justin Lulick. Both drivers considerably far back from Carl Drunke in 5th, so this will be the only battle in this sector of the track for quite a while, unless Carl makes a mistake. But the 15 and the 7 car have had a couple battles throughout the course of the season. Now this time yet another one, Justin Lulick, a very aggressive move there to the inside, but just slightly miscalculates it. He's going to have to wait a moment until he can regroup here for probably the hairpin and most likely turn number 7 there, the entrance to the Hislop chicane. But down towards the hairpin, Marshall Crocker Sr. clears him by quite a ways for the moment, so we will wait and head back to this situation once it develops a little bit. Let's go back to Trevor Anderson again. This is Andrew Bedrossian, I should say. Let's go back to Andrew Bedrossian, who again, despite being the race leader, really hasn't been under fire from anybody so far yet. He's just kind of controlled the race to his own pace and is just kind of hanging out. Doesn't, again, appear to be making any mistakes or having too much trouble. Justin Lulick did just pass Marshall Crocker, so we'll go to that in a moment. But one thing important to mention, Trevor Anderson is only just barely slower on each lap. If anything, he was actually faster on lap 18, so Trevor Anderson really pushing Andrew and pushing his lap times. And again, he may be about 14 seconds back, but Andrew is not going to have a walk in the park for the rest of the race in his efforts to win. Now, Justin has passed Marshall Crocker Sr., but I don't know where the 15 car went. Not a lot of damage or anything for him. He only moves down to 7th and now begins a battle with David Pacza right behind him. No, he's making it through the corners, so it doesn't look like he has any damage. It's just, I don't know, maybe got involved with Justin, maybe sent him off track or something like that, but he lost quite a bit of time there. So now back on track through turn number 1. David Pacza will try to chase him down there in the number 53 car. Of course, remember, back to Detroit Belle Isle, David Pacza and Marshall Crocker got in a bit of an altercation there towards the end of the race on track as the two leaders came up to them. That at the time was Logan Pacza and Trevor Anderson. Right in front of them, these two guys made contact through one of the tighter chicane portions of the track, and hopefully we don't see a copy of that in tonight's race. But ideally they would keep it clean. Now coming through the hairpin section, Marshall Crocker trying to clear him a little ways more, but David Pacza is doing his very best to keep up. He won't be in the slipstream this lap, so we can wait just a moment before this battle extends any further. But really not anybody too close on track. The track map shows plenty of cars there and in the general vicinity of turns 1, 2, and 3, but many of those guys are on different laps and hence aren't racing each other for position. You see that black number 3 dot and the number 4 kind of orangey yellow dot of Rich Foligno. Probably the closest battle on track for the time being, so unless we get a caution or guys get a little bit closer to each other, this will be the only battle on track for the time being. But speaking of which, let's put up the battle box, something we haven't showed in this series in quite a while. That is not the battle box we want. We are going to run out of time. David Pacza goes entirely into the grass here to pass Marshall Crocker, but gets it done. They go side by side. Marshall's going to be sent off track a little bit, goes wide. Crocker gets back on, saves the back end of the car, but what happened there with David Pacza? Kind of put himself in halfway off the track there. 2 tires sitting there in the inside dirt and made his way through the corner. I'm surprised he didn't lose the back end there through that turn number 11 right-hander. But he makes the save, moves up into 7th, and for the time being is kind of smooth sailing there since the very beginning in that incident that he had in turn number 9 where he lost the back end and put himself into the wall. So good recovery there for the 53 car. Well, while we wait for things to maybe progress a little bit further, we're going to go to our second break of the night. This time we might go, how about we go on board with Mr. Rich Foligno? He may be in 4th, just dropping out of the podium spots, but he's putting in a considerably impressive effort tonight and maybe hoping for his first podium of the season. Well, I assure you he is hoping, but we will see if he's able to convert upon that in tonight's race. Thank you as always, guys, for watching the 9th round of the Snowstorm Open Wheel Racing Series season here at Oulton Park Circuit. We'll be back in just a moment, and for the time being, let's enjoy this lovely onboard camera with Rich Foligno. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 9th round of the Snowstorm Open Wheel Racing Series season here at Oulton Park Circuit. Since we dropped away just a moment ago, we've lost 2 drivers from tonight's event, those being Tanner Dignard and Manuel Guerra. I'm not particularly sure what happened to Tanner. Both guys seem to have had incidents where they went off track and went back to the pits, and both appear to have left the event, so never what you want to see, of course, this early in the race, but it's hopefully going to, hopefully both guys are going to have the opportunity to move their way back up through the point standings next week at Iowa. Both guys that I know have had success at ovals throughout the season so far. Of course, Manuel was very quick at Indianapolis. Tanner was very quick at Texas, so let's hope for a good next week's race in round 10 from both of them to recover from tonight's race. But Carl Dronke will now come into the pits, the first car in the top 5 to do so under green all race. I believe another car did just exited the pits a moment ago. That's Caleb Campbell, you see at the bottom of your screen, in the number 11 car. So he is leaving the pits after taking fuel and presumably tires, and will return to the track surface. Marshall Crocker Sr. went a lap down a lap ago while we were under the side-by-side commercial break. I was trying to say caution, but that's not what it is. So he will lose a lap. David Pacza will now become the next car a lap down if he is not able to stay ahead of Andrew Bedrossian. He remains your race leader, has not come into the pits as of yet. Carl is behind Justin, battling for position now at reset. I was going to say on the timing tower, it looked like he was still not in the pits yet. So this now becomes the battle for 5th effectively, but Justin has not pitted, whereas Carl has. So unless Justin can make it to the end on the fuel he took when he repaired his damage, then effectively Carl Dronke is still in 5th in tonight's race. So maybe not a battle for position necessarily, but whatever it is, Justin is breaking away while Carl gets his tires up to temp, so I'm sure Justin is content with his position, whatever his situation may be. And again, Justin Lilich has relatively few top 5s this season. It looks like he's kind of been a make-it-or-break-it driver this year. He's either gotten himself on the podium and had a great result, or he's been involved in a wreck or been marred towards the back of the field. So it's good to see that he's getting some more consistency this season, and that he's finding pace that is more sustainable throughout the course of a run. He's another guy like Andrew that on his best day has a ton of speed, but when he struggles, he can struggle quite a bit. So I shouldn't say that, but when he struggles and his race results aren't great, then they are usually because a crash has happened or something like that has put him further down the order. So doing his best here. Now we're going to continue to try to defend from Carl Dronke, but Carl has the slipstream on him into turn number 1, so you got to think his time in that position is going to require some pretty aggressive defense there to hold off the number 38 car of Carl Dronke, who's been quick all race and is effectively only a couple seconds back of 4th without that pit stop he just took. So he's going to get the run here on Justin Lilich, probably going to go side by side up into the left-hand kink. He is going to go down there, so might have to back out depending on his spot. They are going to go side by side, and Justin just kind of lets him by there. Of course, not racing for a position if Justin does indeed have to pit again. So the 7 car will let the 38 car go by. There goes the 38 car. He taps Carl and Justin make contact. I was going to say he taps him there very quickly, but wasn't sure if they actually made contact, but they do. Where is Carl Dronke on track? The 38 car off track and back to the pits. What in the world happened there? Trevor Anderson also in the pits, actually just entering under green for different reasons, but let's go back and watch what happened there between Carl Dronke and Justin Lilich. A very uncharacteristic on-track incident. We haven't had one of those in this series in quite a while, where 2 guys just actually make contact. Oh, I guess Carl and... wait, this is the 2nd time in the race. That just occurred to me. These guys have now made contact twice. I'm entirely wrong, but I don't know what to make of that. So first of all, I'm going to say right off the bat, didn't look retaliatory to me. Again, I don't think earlier incident was anybody's fault necessarily, so I wouldn't suggest that as a hypothetical situation as to why it would happen. But what in the world happened there? He kind of got up to speed a little bit quicker. Carl was taking a slower exit out of the corner, which is respectable because he had a wider line. He would have to. I don't know, maybe chopped him off a little bit. I wouldn't necessarily pin that on anybody. I'd say that's a racing incident, but certainly it wasn't anybody's fault. But whatever it is, Justin now only finally makes it back to the pits with a considerable portion of his front wing missing. And of course, Carl Dronke is in there getting service. But you know who else is getting service? Your race leader, Mr. Andrew Bedrossian, will come in for the first time. He is going to head in. Justin Lilich is exiting pit road as we speak, so he'll use his 2nd quick repair of the night. His first was used earlier in that former incident with Carl Dronke. Of course, the 2nd time that he's been involved with him this race, so he is out of quick repairs. Justin will have to keep that number 7 car extra clean throughout the rest of this race. But Andrew is back on track, and look who is behind him. The guy who he was formerly racing against earlier in the race, Mr. Logan Pacza, the pole sitter that he was battling with at the very beginning of tonight's race. Logan is a lap down, now trying to make the move here on Tim Salvatore. This is for position. This would put Logan back up in 8th, which would be huge. Max Preston and Rich Felina have both come in for service, as well as Trevor Anderson. So, or no, Trevor Anderson hasn't. It's claiming he has, but Trevor still has yet to come into the pits, to my knowledge. So, we'll see where he cycles in relation to Max Preston. But for now, we got to keep an eye on this battle for 8th. This would be the final spot a lap down. No lucky dogs in road course races, but it would still be nice for Logan to gain one more spot and continue to move his way up the order. Again, as I mentioned earlier in the race, trying to minimize the number of positions he loses as a result of his early incident, at least as far as the championship is concerned. Only 8 laps to go, actually. We're not too far away from the ending of this race, so this would be huge for him and trying to make sure that he can make this move happen quick, and then maybe he can try to go chase down Justin Lillick, who isn't too far up the road. It doesn't show up as Justin Lillick being a lap down, but Andrew is not too far behind and making that the case. Logan's going to send it on the inside into turn number 11. Side by side with Salvatore. Salvatore trying to hold him off, almost chops in there on the exit, almost losing the back end, and Tim managed to correct in time to not hit Logan. So Logan Pacza takes over 8th once again. He will move his way back up one more spot and now tries to chase down Justin Lillick as we continue throughout this stint. Not sure if Logan has taken his pit stop there for fuel. He took one, of course, earlier in the race to repair his damage, but I think that would have been a little bit too early to serve as his final one of the race. So we'll see how that works with track position once he does make his second stop, if he has to. But if he doesn't, it would certainly shake up the complexion of this race quite significantly, and it would mean that, well, he's gained more spots than many probably would have anticipated the championship leader getting in tonight's race after, at the very beginning, going all the way down to 14th, has recovered all the way to 8th on track without the use of cautions. It's impressive and something that only our championship leader and maybe a select few drivers could possibly do. So Logan Pacza, though 8th may not represent it, it's been a great performance for him so far tonight. Actually, couldn't make his way up to 6th. You see that red number 6 dot there on the track map? That will be a car for position there if he's able to make his way up there. So Logan Pacza's night is not over, but he's going to have to hurry here with 8 laps to go. Actually 7 when Andrew crosses the line. Well, let's look for an on-track battle, which are hard to come by right now, but instead let's go to Trevor Anderson, who has made his second pit stop, first pit stop, unless he took tires very early in the race. And again, Trevor just having another one of those Trevor nights. It's something that he's done quite a few times throughout this season where he's just kind of had a quiet race. You don't really see him in too many battles, but again, just doesn't make mistakes, and that's what you got to do at tracks like this. Just be more comfortable than the rest of the guys around you. Don't be prone to any incidents at all. And if there's any guy where I was to put money on them being in the top 5 at the end of any race we have on one of these Friday nights, I'd put that money every week on Trevor Anderson, and there's a reason for it. And it's the reason that he's so far up in the championship points as he is. This would put him probably in sole possession of 3rd. If Andrew didn't finish as high as he potentially will with only 7 laps to go, could get his first win of the season with the number 5 car. But if he hadn't done that, Trevor could have reasonably put himself in the 2nd, but might even put himself in 3rd depending on how Max Preston finishes. Of course, him and Max are tied in the overall point standings. I believe he's 18 back in the 2 drop race standings. So that is the drop race standings are the ones for the actual championship points at the end of the season. So it'll be important for him to make up those 18 points if he wants to take home the prize money for 2nd rather than the prize money for 3rd. But we will see in just a moment. This is the battle for 6th on track. These two guys are being chased down by Logan Pacza, who also wants to take over sole possession of that 6th spot. But the 15 and the 7 are going to go side by side up to corner number 11. Justin Lillick makes the clean pass, but he's a little bit too wide there. Puts a tire in the grass and loses it once again. I was going to say might go around. It was a possibility. Now Marshall Crocker will pit as well. So Logan Pacza, just like that, in a flash, goes up to 6th. Tim Salvatore will go up to 7th. What a considerable amount of change there in only one corner. Justin Lillick will go up to 8th. That is Marshall Crocker, who will move down to 9th after the pit stop. But Justin Lillick becomes yet another victim of that outside grass there in turn number 11. Just put too much of the car off the track and spun himself around there. Gave Marshall Crocker the position for the time being, but then gave it immediately back to Logan and Tim Salvatore. So, well, that being said, again, no considerable battles on track as we come to 5 to go next time that Andrew crosses the line. But David Pacza and Logan Pacza have kind of reformed there, 5th and 6th, and after having 2 very different races, remember Logan crashed there on lap number 5, spun himself in turn number 1, made a great recovery all the way back to 6th, but David Pacza kind of had a similar story, going around there in 3rd through the 7, 8, 9 chicane there through the Hislop on probably lap 10 or 12, so also early in the race. Took some damage, had to repair it, went about a full minute back, and since then has done whatever he can to recover and continues to sit in the top 5. So not a bad points day for either of the two Paxas. It's just perhaps not the top 3 positions you were hoping for at the very beginning of the broadcast, when both guys looked like they were definitely going to be good contenders for not only the win for Logan, but a podium or even possibly the win for David as well. So not the race they would have hoped for, but certainly not a bad performance from either of them at this point. Looking throughout the field, Logan Pacza has Tim Salvatore relatively in his rearview mirror. Of course, Andrew is lapping every car that he comes up towards, and now that car becomes Logan Pacza, who you got to think would probably be running similar lap times to him. I would check, but unfortunately the lap times won't really compare between the two of them because they are not battling for position. Tim Salvatore will come into the pits momentarily. Actually, he has already, so Tim Salvatore moves down to 8th and possibly even 9th if Marshall Crocker Sr. can catch him as he comes up the left-hander through turn number 12. Tim is on pit exit. We'll see how this race off pit road goes. This determines who finishes 8th. Marshall Crocker might make the move. Looks like he has. There he is, the 15 car on the outside through the corner. Marshall Crocker did just come into the pit, so his tires aren't going to be that much warmer than Tim's, but they are going to be a little bit, so keep an eye on that. Did Marshall Crocker just go off the track? I thought I saw him wash out a little bit wide, but nope, he's fine. Makes it through corner number 3 and will attempt to chase down Tim for 8th. But what was I talking about? I was talking about Andrew Bedrossian and Logan Pacza. So again, if you're Andrew Bedrossian and you're, well, next time we come by 4 laps away from your first win of the season, the last thing you want to see in your windshield, or I guess they don't have windshields in these cars, but the last thing you want to see ahead of you is a lapped car that might get in your way. But one lap car that probably won't is Logan Pacza, who, again, probably running comparable lap times to Andrew throughout this race. And as a result, it means that unless he tries really, really hard, which if he's just trying to get the car around to the finish line, sitting currently 16 seconds ahead of Trevor, that's all he's going to do. But he's not even going to have Logan ahead of him now, as Logan does come into the pits. I speculated about whether he could finish the race on fuel, and pitting only 4 laps short of the finish means that Justin Lillick will get that spot, and if they hurry, Tim Salvatore and Marshall Crocker might have something to say about the 7th spot as well. But that'll move Justin Lillick up to 6th. Again, not a bad performance tonight for the number 7 car, who's recovered quite well after his 2 incidents with Carl Dronke throughout the race. Trying to think about who else we need to go to. Trevor Anderson and Max Preston continue to sit in fairly comfortable spots. Preston and Foligno have been close together all race. Here's Rich Foligno here in the number 99 car. Really impressive race here from Rich. This will be his best finish of the season, and I'd argue it's not even his best race necessarily. He's had some great performances throughout the year, so it's crazy. I think this will only be his first top 5 of the season. Really doesn't feel like it deserves to be only his first. He's had a ton of great results so far this season, at least in terms of his on-track performance. He's just kind of seems to get involved in stuff, and this is absolutely not the first time he's found himself in the top 5. So he'll finally be able to make it work tonight as long as he can keep it clean for 4 more laps, 3 more laps in just a moment once Andrew crosses the line. So great race tonight from Rich Foligno, even if he isn't able to catch up to Max Preston, which, again, isn't out of the equation. Still has the time to, but it'll be close. He's going to have to really put in some top times if he wants to make up that ground. Back to the track map. Not too many battles I can see in the considerable future. I mean, this feels like much more of a beginning of the season type of race. Remember, we didn't call a bunch of cautions in this series until probably race 4 or 5 of our season. So this is much more indicative of I'd say, what this series is generally about. Maybe the odd caution here and there, but after that, it's just drivers doing what they can to race as quick as they can, and it's given us some great racing action tonight. But for the most part, this has felt like a more traditional F1 race, not too much on-track chaos, and that's good from a series coordinator's perspective, like I am, hoping for some clean races and hoping for some pretty, or not unhappy drivers. Speaking of unhappy drivers, Carl Dronke will put Caleb Campbell back into 11th, but Caleb's a good guy, and he's always happy about how he does in this series, and he has every right to be. I know he might finish 11th tonight, but there were certainly some big names there that went down early and took over the spots late in the race there from him. So I wouldn't feel bad with that performance at all. Carl Dronke's been really fast all season, so being passed by him isn't exactly something to feel down about. But Caleb Campbell, he's had a great year so far, and again, I keep saying it, but he is probably my dark horse pick to put himself up into the top 3 in one of these races entirely under green. Doesn't need any crazy shenanigans. I know some guys may occasionally take a podium here and there, and they need a couple things to go right to do it, but Caleb is a guy that I think could genuinely just win a race without all too much, or not win. Well, maybe he could win a race, but put himself in the podium spots is what I'm trying to say without all too much chaos. So best of luck to Caleb for the rest of the season. We got 6 more rounds for him to put himself in the podium spots, and we'll see if he's able to do so the rest of the year. Back up to Andrew Bedrossian, crosses the line this last time by for 2 more to go, and you gotta wonder what's going through this guy's head. I mean, you talk about a guy that has probably had one of the most up and down seasons of racing action I've ever seen from anybody. Not just like iRacing series, not even series I put together, but just generally, racing legacies. So you talk about his season. He joins the Carts to Computers season 1 in the very last race of the season. Finishes top 5. I believe he finished 5th in his debut, so certainly nothing to scoff at. But then we come into Carts to Computers season 2. We join in the team dynamic, and he doesn't have a team for most of the season, but almost wins the team's championship by himself. Doesn't win the title. That goes to Michael Krobach, a good friend of his, but he does his very best, does what he can, gets a win over Michael and Michael's home turf of ovals. If you saw Michael at Texas earlier this season, you'd think, man, it'd be tough to beat that guy at ovals, but Andrew did it. He did it in round 9 of that second season of Carts to Computers. Now he might win round 9 of the Snowstorm Open Wheel Racing Series season, but then he comes in this year. He wins the practice races all the time. He's frequently the quickest at practice. He doesn't miss a practice session, even when he has other things he has to do. And then he goes to the races, and he gets podium after podium, but more so he gets pole after pole. And he comes so close time after time, and yet always something, whether it be a crash, whether it be a spin, whether it be car troubles as a result of slight collision with a lap car, something always seems to go wrong. But white flag this time by the final lap of tonight's 35-lap race at Oulton Park Circuit. Just one more lap around to go before Andrew gets that first win of the season and continues his chase down towards Logan Pacza in the points. He's been on a campaign all year. Even when he doesn't get the wins, he comes away with great performances all the time. Caleb Campbell's just passed Carl Dronke for position. I think Carl went around somewhere on track. Not a ton of damage, but I think he just got loose there on the entry to the Hislop chicane. So he'll move down. Caleb Campbell will move back into the top 10. Good on the number 11 car. Good work for him. But again, let's keep an eye there on Andrew Bedrossian as he comes around for the final time. We'll go on board with him for just a moment as feels only fitting. Here is the view here from the number 5 car. Down the hill towards the Hislop chicane through the 789 right-hander, then left-hander, then right-hander again. This is one of the corners he was absolutely blowing me away with yesterday in practice. We were racing each other, and he could always find the pace here that maybe I couldn't, and it's worked for him tonight. He's done everything he's had to. He can just put the car in cruise control. He's trying to back off from the car in front, let that car have a little bit of space so he doesn't have to worry about getting involved with the lap car. There we go. Jack Hillier's going to move to the right side of the track. Andrew's going to go by on the left. He is done. No more lap cars to worry about. This is over for him. What a season it's been. It's been a crazy, chaotic first 8 races of the season for Andrew Bedrossian. Didn't get the win he deserves, but finally at Oulton Park Circuit, the number 5 car will get his win. And round number 9, Andrew Bedrossian wins at Oulton Park for the first time this season and will continue his campaign towards that top spot in the points. Trevor Anderson will come across for second. Yet another podium this season. What a campaign he's had in his own right. Trevor Anderson, just race after race, finds pace in such a healthy manner that doesn't require tight apexes, doesn't require getting in the grass at all. It just requires good, clean racing ability. Max Preston will come across the line third, gets his 6th podium of the season, has just been on rails as of late. He's been so quick, and, well, he wasn't able to make up the time he needed to pass Trevor there. He did what he had to stay ahead of Rich Foligno, who comes home 4th. Rich, what a race for him. Again, this is the performance he's been looking for a while, and I can't wait to see how he brings this into next week at Iowa. He's another one of those guys that always finds pace at ovals, so I can't wait to see what he can do there. David Pacza will round out the top 5. What a chaotic race he's had. After that earlier incident through the Hislop chicane, went off track, had to come in for damage, but has since recovered. Will finish 5th, will stay on the lead lap as well, so congratulations to David Pacza. Great race for him. Then Justin Lewick and Logan Pacza, both guys that have had their struggles throughout the race in many different ways, and to come home 6th and 7th in the top half of the field. Not a bad performance for either of those two gentlemen at all. Marshall Crocker Sr. here will finish in 8th. Caleb Campbell and Carl Dronke will finish 9th and 10th. You saw that late race pass as Carl Dronke got loose in the Hislop chicane, giving Caleb Campbell that 9th place spot. And somebody else went behind. Tim Salvatore, I think, left on the last lap to give both of them one more spot, and he has left the session already. Jack Hillier still on track as well, so he will finish in 12th ahead of Tanner Dignard and Manuel Guerra, who left earlier in the race. But I'm spoiling things. I'm giving stuff away. We got to do this at the end of the race when we go to our results. For the time being, here is Mr. Andrew Bedrossian congratulations to the, again, probably the most deserving guy in this entire field to get a win tonight. He's, again, so quick in practice this week. He's done everything he's had to finally get this to happen. And, man, like, it's insane. If you talk about most laps led this year, I think Andrew has it. If you talk about average lap speed through every race of the year, he's probably the quickest per lap. But this just took so long to happen for no discernible reason, and finally, Andrew is on the top spot of the podium. He's doing as many donuts as he needs, and, well, he deserves it. The number 5 car is going to probably run until that thing goes out of fuel, and considering he pitted not too many laps ago, that might be a while. Maybe we can do an interview with him still in the car, holding the wheel to the right. But here he goes, continues round and around, and what a race for him. It's a pleasure to see, and hopefully for all the Andrew fans at home, I know he's got plenty of people that come home and watch these broadcasts. Hopefully that's a good finish to see for you guys. So, well, that was great. I enjoyed that very much. Wow, what a race. Thank you all for watching. That was an absolute pleasure to be able to call. And again, a little bit more traditional, maybe more so like an F1 style of race, but it was interesting. It has definite championship implications. And I don't know, I for one prefer races where you can just focus on the drivers, focus on gaps, and focus on strategy more than on crashes happening every 2 laps. And I have a Wednesday series where we had 11 cautions the other week, and I'm certainly glad that I did not have to worry about that tonight. But with that being said, we are now officially finished tonight's race, and as such, we can put up your race results. Well, let's get those up there. Let's throw up some music. I've been trying to incorporate some music a little bit more often lately, so there are your results in tonight's race. Let's get some background music up there. Get this thing a little bit more lively. So, winning tonight's race, as we mentioned just a moment ago, finally getting his first of the season, Andrew Bedrossian. 2nd points to this point. He's had more seconds than anybody I can think of in any series anywhere. So to finally turn that into a win is the performance he's been looking for a long time, and I have no doubt that he could rattle off 4 more before the end of the season to tie Logan Pacza. He's that good, and now that he's got over that hump and he's made the progress he needs in certain areas, this could be a great end of the season for Andrew Bedrossian. Still not done in his championship hunt down for Logan Pacza. But finishing second, it's an All-American top 2. They're going to sweep the front row of the podium. So Trevor Anderson will finish second, getting his 3rd consecutive podium, 3rd consecutive top 2 performance in the last 3 races. Of course, the 2 races at Belle Isle, a win at a second, and comes away with a pretty quiet 2nd place performance tonight. But quiet is much better than the loud, dangerous, crash-prone alternative. So good on Trevor Anderson for coming across the line in 3rd. Then Max Preston finishes in the 3rd spot. Again, one of his many podiums this season. He's had a year full of them, and since the first 3 races where I don't think he had any, I think he's rattled off one in all but one race. The second half of our Belle Isle doubleheader this year. So what a season for Max Preston. He has just been on rails lately. But Rich Foligno, another guy like Andrew, kind of getting over the hump tonight. Got so close so many times, but just had unfortunate bad luck that put him in wrecks, put him in unfortunate situations that weren't by his own doing. We have a couple of guys that have those similar situations all season. So for Rich to finally make his way into the top 4 is great to see. And again, 7 seconds back in Max Preston. He was there all race. Could have definitely put that car onto the podium and gotten his first of the season. But 4th, you can't complain with that. David Pacza, your last car on the lead lap tonight. The top of the 2 Paxas tonight in tonight's race, which based on qualifying would have been a surprise to see, but David earned it. 5th tonight after the incident that he had early in the race in Hislop, a corner that many drivers have struggled with, and is certainly not beyond the possibility of an incident. Well, he recovered from it great. He took the damage he needed to and repaired it and got that car back on track, and since then he was just on rails. Coming across tonight with another top 5. He's had a couple in his own right this season, so great to see for the number 53 car. Justin Luke narrowly ahead of Logan Pacza there at the end thanks to his fuel strategy. He was able to beat Logan there on track by the end, and another good recovery from the 7 car, getting in 2 incidents tonight with Carl Dronke, but he recovered from both of them, and he will finish in 6th. Logan Pacza, your pole sitter tonight. Again, that pole position curse that we've seen so many times this year happened again to Logan Pacza, and unfortunately with an early incident there on lap 5 after a restart on cold tires, he recovered as best he could, gaining I think 7 spots there from where he was after the crash. And what a race for Logan Pacza past that point. We'll see what he can do to follow it up next week in Iowa. But for the time being, he will finish in 7th. Marshall Crocker Sr. will finish in 8th there. It felt like he was battling with drivers all throughout the field all race. He had a very hectic round 9 tonight at Oulton Park. But he'll recover to finish 8th, which, again, almost top half of the field. not a bad points day in the midfield there for him. Caleb Campbell will finish in 9th in the number 11 car, another driver who had a busy day. Narrowly avoided losing that spot to Carl Drunke there at the end. Carl, of course, having his little spin there in turn number 11 that put him behind Caleb in the running order. And then, of course, Carl Drunke finishing in the number 38 car in 10th. Ran some great laps throughout the race, but unfortunately just couldn't convert it into any higher than the top 10. Tim Salvatore will finish 11th in his return to the series. It was a bit of a chaotic, hectic start to the race for him. Of course, getting involved in a wreck in the first corner there with Tanner Dignard and Manuel Guerra. But again, another guy that got back on track, got back on the horse and recovered. Only going down 2 laps and very narrowly, I think, passing Caleb and Carl there towards the end of the race. So not a bad performance at all for the number 91 car. Jack Hillier will finish 18th there will finish 12th in the number 18 entry, I should say. Not a bad race for him at all. Again, he get the car on track by the end there. Things were getting pretty nuts and mad, and this is a track that can be very crash prone for guys that maybe don't have a ton of practice ever on it. So Jack, I'm impressed with what he was able to do, and hopefully he can continue to work his way up through the field and maybe put himself in the top 10 next race. We can only hope. But Tanner Dignard and Manuel Guerra both going off the track at the same time, kind of ironically, because they were involved in the same lap 1 incident that didn't put either of them out. They just happened to both leave the race at the same time. So Tanner will beat Manuel quite narrowly as they both went out on the same lap. So if Manuel had run one more lap, he would have finished 13th, but instead he will have to settle for 14th. So Tanner Dignard 13th, Manuel Guerra 14th, and that will round out your field. Of course, Marshall Crocker Jr., that is me, but that is because I forgot to take myself off the graphic, not because I was in tonight's race. And with that will bring us to the end of the racing portion of tonight's festivities, but that means it is time to go to the interview booth and start rounding off your interviews in tonight's race. First, we have to go to Mr. Max Preston, a guy we've talked to quite frequently this season. And talking to him yet again. He's been on fire the last couple races, and well, it's always a pleasure to talk to him, so we'll pull him into the booth in just a moment and get your first interview of the night underway. Hey, Max, Marshall in the booth. You got me? Oh, not too much. It's been a fairly kind of quiet race, actually, compared to some we've had in the last couple weeks. Belle Isle was full of chaos, most certainly, but tonight was a little bit quieter, and it seemed to work for you there. I mean, with those guys at the front, those guys that are reliable on track and running quick laps that don't really take too many risks, guys like you and Trevor that are very relied upon to not really have too many incidents throughout the course of a traditional race. It happened again. You had a pretty quiet event, but it worked for you there. What about Oulton Park do you think made this a relatively less chaotic affair than Belle Isle? Both tracks that are pretty tricky. And do you think these races where we don't get a ton of cautions and you can just focus on driving, do you think those tend to work better for you overall?
You know, first of all, great questions, and if you don't mind, I'm going to take probably a second to formulate an answer here, but as I'm doing that, I want to make sure one thing first. Do I sound okay on the mic?
Oh yeah, you sound great. Okay,
awesome. So, Marshall, first of all, for you putting on a great show, which I'm sure your new computer is probably, up the graphics quite a bit for the audience, so that's fantastic, right? In terms of the track itself, though, what's different about this and Belle Isle? Belle Isle is one of those typical street courses where you're constantly changing asphalt, you're constantly changing, you're going from concrete to tarmac to asphalt. What that does, every transition you do over a new surface, it unsettles the car a little bit, right? And as it unsettles the car, it changes how the car feels underneath. As your same braking performance that you get on asphalt, you're not going to get on concrete, right? So I think what that lent its hand into is a bit more of a conservative style of race for a lot of the drivers, because the track itself was so green and it never quite rubbered in once. So you saw a little bit more of a conservative driving style from some of the other drivers. I think that bunched everyone up a little bit more, and just with it being a street course where there's no grass in between track and wall, people were making mistakes and leaving debris and the carnage across the track, which had to be scraped up and made way. So there's a lot of cautions. In terms of Oulton Park, though, it's a track that has a lot of forgiveness, lots of grass in between the wall and the pavement. So if you make a mistake, it doesn't guarantee you're going to slam into something. And with that too, it's actually relatively a consistent track. So to the point where when I went for my pit stop, I thought to myself, like, do I even really need to take tires? Because my times, varied. I think more inconsistency from my lack of practice this particular week. But I don't think the car changed really any bit. And I think that lent its hand into Andy being so far out front because his lap times were killer compared to all the rest of us, maybe not Logan. And then everyone else just running their consistent times, and then everyone just ended up where they ended up, by avoiding the carnage in the start of the race and just putting in some clean laps for the rest of it. And with no yellow flags, everyone spaced out and ended up, I think, where they were supposed to end up. And that's why I think that this race was quite a bit different than last week.
Right. I mean, you talk about the guys that, knew what they were doing, running the same lap times they're running in qualifying and practice, just basically over and over. As you say, why I think Andrew was just so dominant tonight. But it wasn't that way all the way through. I mean, you talk about the beginning of the race, we had some great battles. The most notable one throughout the race, probably the biggest moment of the race besides Logan's spin there at the beginning, was you had a battle there with David Pacza, I think, there for second there towards the beginning of the race. You just kind of want to talk through that battle there at the beginning. First of all, how this track is for passing, because I know so many times where the dirty air can make it tougher through the high-speed corners. But once you did get in a battle there with David, you had the slide there through the Hislop chicane there. Just talk about how you were able to recover from that, how you were able to make your way all the way up to third, and just overall what passing is like here at a track like Oulton.
Yeah, first of all, total bonehead move on my part. Total bonehead move on my part, because look, all the credit to Dave. I mean, he made that car about 3 cars wider than it deserved to be. And it was a great defensive line that he was taking. I mean, he dove onto the inside on every single turn. And so the whole time that I'm thinking, I was on Discord with Justin, and so I asked Justin if he can move aside because I had quite a bit more speed than both of them, because Justin was talking about having issues passing Dave. So I jumped in, tried to see what I can do, and I tried for a lap before, and I just couldn't. So, it was one of those times, Marshall, where I'm coming down the back straightaway, and I know what he's going to do. He's going to dive right to the inside, and I look in my rearview mirror, and I've got a gang full of guys all right behind me. It's like a truly trained from the old F1 days. And all I could do was, I was like, okay, I'm either going to be a hero or going to be zero here. And, more times than not, when I say that to myself, I tend to end up being the hero. Well, this wasn't one of those times. So, so I tried to go for pardon my French, a ballsy pass on the outside going into the chicane. It just didn't quite work out. So again, all the credit to Dave. That's all I could think of. I had a run, tried way too soon, and just deserved to end up where I did, which is good, where I brought it back on track and was able to redeem myself a little bit by having a battle with Rich there, and was able to recover a position, at least in the chicane, where I ended up losing about 5. So again, yeah, that was a great battle, and you're right, and that was a great opening stage of this race, and I think it deserves to be talked about more, especially from Dave's performance. That was killer.
Yeah, for how well he was doing tonight, I don't think top 5 tells the whole story for him. But there were some guys that maybe they don't always have the performances that they deserve to have, like Rich Foligno finishing 4th. Guys that are always quick and are always consistent that finally got the luck to turn their way tonight. So that was good to see. But man, you come away with your 7th top 5 of the season, very nearly 8, which I think ties you for the lead with I think both Logan and Andrew. So we talked the last couple times I've talked to you in the booth here about the kind of run you've been on lately, and at all these road courses, you just seem to have a ton of pace, even if, as you say, you don't get a ton of practice. But that seems to be a thing in the series as a sidebar. Like whenever you or Tim say you don't get a lot of practice coming into a week, you absolutely dominate. So like maybe that's the key. But when you do come into these tracks and you have so much success, it almost makes you wonder, like what part of your approach has changed, do you think, from last season? Because you come into this year and you seem to have the same amount of success as guys like Andrew and Logan. Like you're so close to that top 2 battle for the championship. So as we head into Iowa next week, what have you learned as the season's gone on? How do you approach these races differently? And how are you going to approach next week to try to track down Andrew for second in the points?
Again, fantastic questions. And I think what it really comes down to is last season, Cars to Computers. One thing that I don't think I've talked about too much, because it really isn't important in my opinion, but I think maybe for this question, is the fact that I only got into iRacing starting in April of 2020. So, and when I got into it, it was on a tri-screen setup. It was from actually my co-owner of NSM, Anthony Simone. Anthony Simone had the whole setup. The chair, the steering wheel, the pedals, and everything was built in the garage. I still am not using, a proper play seat or anything. I'm sitting on a 98 Toyota Sienna chair. But numerous changes have happened. Number one, I got rid of the tri-monitors because it was, just wasn't working out for me. Number two, I moved the location of the sim into a different part of my house where I have more room. On either side of it, it's less cramped, and I also got a Oculus VR headset, so that makes it, the immersion side of it, a lot more rich. It makes it a better experience, right? And number three, now that I've gotten used to the whole entire setup, I've made minor tweaks to the physical side of my sim to make it a little bit more comfortable. Now it's been at the point where I'm approaching it much like I would approach any race, in or out of the simulator. And what that means is, I don't like to talk too much about the years I had at the racetrack because it's not as relevant to this stuff. But I mean, one thing that I'm very proud of is I've raced, all over the place. So I've seen most corners that most of the tracks we're racing on in the season have, right? I've seen most of the scenarios that we run into in a race. I've seen this and I've seen that. So I get to call back to that experience as I enter the world of sim racing, and I get to use at least as much as I can from those, physical and mental memories that I have and bring that experience into the sim racing world. One thing I'm critically lacking is, unfortunately, is speed at a lot of these tracks because I haven't found the ability to put in hours and hours and hours of practice. So the only thing I can do is use that racing experience, be behind guys in the race, keep my nose clean, just be smart, and 9 times out of 10, consistency is going to win over speed. And so that's been the goal for me this season, is to remain consistent if I don't have the speed. And I'm glad to see that it's working out in my favor thus far.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a message I think is getting across loud and clear as the season goes on, is that sometimes you just got to be on track to be the best on track. And it's something that I know that Logan and Andrew at times have had their mistakes throughout the season, but at the end of the day, they are on a different tier and pace. So it's definitely there finding a balance, and you've probably more so than anybody been the poster child this year for finding that balance, and it's why you've done so well on the points. And it's a pleasure to watch you come out in every race and be a reliable guy that you're not only going to make the broadcast exciting, but that you're not going to have too much chaos in your own efforts. And as a result, you're just rattling off the podiums. You do it yet again, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you do next week. We go back to a competitive oval at Iowa, and I can't wait to see what happens. But for the time being, as we do in all the interviews, if there's anybody you want to shout out at home, anybody you want to give a mention to, or any sponsors you want to talk about, this is your time.
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, always have to thank yourself, Marshall. Always fun watching the broadcast. Always fun watching, the comments more than anything from the fans that are watching. And I think that's another, a demographic that I have to thank as well, as the fans themselves who watch each and every broadcast. Because, as I've seen the views climb up every single race, and I've seen the participation from the drivers climb every single season, and myself, I'm always going to join one of the series that you put on, and I'm sure all of the drivers that were there today would say the same thing. But it's great to see the fans also engaging with the broadcast and getting a lot out of it too. So thanks to them for tuning in. Finally, I always have to thank my wife Alyssa. She was watching upstairs, so thank you very much, Alyssa, for tuning me on as always. And my parents, Gabriella and Mike. Happy birthday, Dad! It was his birthday on Valentine's Day, so big happy birthday to him. My sister Jenna, sister-in-law Courtney, brother-in-law Keith Metcalf, Anthony, Nancy Rizzo, as well as Laura Jensen Metcalf. I'm sure they're watching. Hello, little kids. Thanks for watching. And of course, Justin, I gotta thank him. He's always, he's always a great person to bounce a lot of ideas off of. The little practice we do get helps a lot with him, so he's great at that. And finally, on the sponsorship side, always Lumo Marketing, gotta give a big shout out to. I know they were watching this race, so thanks a lot, guys. As well as Axiom Group, and finally New Speed Motorsports, again, New Speed prepares with the big series down south for Rocco and Anthony Simone. Good luck down there, guys. We're cheering you on at the Florida Winter Tour and at the SCUSA Winter Series. Keep kicking butt, dude. All right, thanks a lot, Marshall. Another great race, and I look forward to the next one.
Awesome. Same to you. Can't wait to see you next week. And great. Again, as always, great performance tonight, man. It's can't wait to see what you do at Iowa.
Thanks, brother. Talk soon.
With that, we'll round out your first interview of the night. Sorry, I gotta take a minute. It's one of those nights where perhaps I didn't take enough water, and it's coming back to bite me. And hopefully that isn't coming through loud and clear, but doing my very best to recover from it. We got 2 more interviews to go. I'll try to get them through a little quick. I know Max and I always have a good rapport and a good conversation. He's one of the best guys to bounce questions off of in this series. But I'll try to get you guys off at a decent time. I don't want to keep you guys too long. But we're going to go to Mr. Trevor Anderson for your second interview of the night, finishing second for the second time in 2 races and finishing in the top 2 for the second time or the third time in 3 races. So let's go to him. Hey, Trevor, it's Marshall in the booth. You got me?
Yep, I got you.
Awesome. Well, first of all, man, you've just been on fire these last couple races. I was just talking about in the series. That's your 3rd straight top 2 finish, your 2nd straight second place. And, 2 tracks more different in terms of the road courses than Oulton Park and Long Beach would be hard to find. So you're carrying over that speed from one race to another. But one thing that seemed to be apparent for everybody was that the guys that were safe and didn't take too many risks on track were going to find the best of the points there at the end. So as guys were finding chaos there around you, did that change your the way that you approached every corner of the race? As you saw Logan go around there at the start, saw all sorts of chaos there on lap 1. Did that change the way you approached the track, and were you a little bit more careful to just stay on track to come home with the second place performance the rest of the race?
Already kind of trying to be cautious because it's such a hard track. If you just run a little bit too hot, you're gonna catch the grass on the outside. So, but definitely seeing Logan go off like that, I probably was like, okay, now we really gotta go for it. Like he's out, so he's probably one of the fastest guys here. So if I don't have him in front of me, let's go for it.
There we go. Sorry, I just had a brief tech thing there. The opportunity certainly opened up for you with those crashes there at the beginning. You were already tied for 3rd in points with Max, so tonight you definitely had to beat him. That was going to be a crucial race for you in the championship. And speaking of, once you got ahead of those guys and you just had to focus on the track, did you find that Oulton Park's layout came naturally to you? Like, do you like the style of track here where the margins are very thin, there's a lot of very tight chicanes, and were you taking a lot of risks? Were you trying to catch up to Andrew, or were you just taking kind of a lean back approach there after you had all the guys move away in front of you?
I definitely like the track. The fast sweeping turns are really fun, and I love the hairpin. I love carrying a lot of speed through there. I wasn't really taking too many risks. Near the end, though, I got fresh tires, and I don't think he did. So I was pushing a little bit, and I think I started to, figure out the track a little bit better, kind of understand a little bit better where I can push a little bit and not get myself into trouble. But at the end, I just wanted to finish, So I wasn't pushing too hard, wasn't gonna hurt myself, but was just trying to go as fast as I can and not get in any trouble.
Well, not only did you avoid trouble, but you put yourself there in second. Again, you're just moving your way up through the points. You now break that tie you have there with Max, and I think you're ahead of him in the drop race championship as well. So you're doing well for yourself this year. You're getting close to those top 2 guys. And what is like your mental approach for the rest of the season? We go to Iowa next week, but we only have 6 races left in the calendar. So there's definitely some time to work with, but we're getting towards the end of the year. Is your mental approach to these races going to change now that you're so close to the top 2 in the title? You're so close to potentially winning the championship with so little time left to go in the year.
Yeah, I think I really gotta figure out how to catch Andrew and Logan, on just outright pace, and really take it to them head to head, because that's probably what it's going to come down to. If I'm within striking distance going into the last couple races, I gotta be able to take it to them. Otherwise, they're gonna run away with it. So, probably gonna need a little bit of extra practice going into the next rest of the season, just so I can make sure that I can hang with those guys. But as long as I'm not taking too many risks and just there at the end of the race, it should work out. Just like it has so far. But definitely got to get that outright pace up to their level a little bit.
Well, next week, again, we go to Iowa, a track that is kind of just all about breaking points. So as long as you can get that down and pick up some time there, I think you'll be able to definitely hang with the best of them there in terms of being as quick as anybody else out there. So that's all you got to look for here in round number 10 of the series next week. And again, you got the momentum to challenge for the title. Again, 3 wins. 3 top 2s in the last 3 races, including your win at Belle Isle. So, well, you're on fire here lately, and I can't wait to see if you do it again next week. But for the time being, as we do in all of our interviews, is there anybody you want to thank at home, give a shout out to, or any sponsors you want to mention?
Yeah, just my dad, for always watching my races, and he's the one that got me into racing. He took me to Long Beach when I was a kid, so it took me to the kart track as a kid, so I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for him. So, gotta thank him for that, of course. And as always, my fiance for always being there for me. And that's about it. No sponsors or anything for me yet.
Well, you certainly deserve them, man. You are as quick as any of the guys who have them, and I'm sure maybe if you get in touch with some of them, they could certainly put in a good word for you. But congratulations, Trevor, again. Always a pleasure to see. You don't always necessarily get in a ton of incidents, ton of battles, but there's a good reason for that. It's just because you're quick, and it requires a lot more effort from a lot of different people to be as fast as you are on track. So it pays off for you, man. Every race, it's been a pleasure to watch, and I can't wait to see what you do the rest of the year, man.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, that will round off your what am I saying? That's what happens here at the end of these broadcasts, everybody. I just start to lose it, I think. I think I'm going crazy. I hear like a phantom car noise in the background. I don't know if people are still in the race session or what, but I'm hearing something, and hopefully it doesn't deter from the last interview of the night, which is, of course, with your race winner. For the first time this season, this is a big one, Mr. Andrew Bedrossian. Let's get him in the booth momentarily. Mr. Andrew, it is Marshall in the booth. You got me? Hey, Andrew, it's Marshall in the booth. You got me?
Yes, sir.
There we go. Well, Mr. Andrew, it has finally happened. It's in a season where I feel like this is probably in a different universe happened about 4 or 5 times now. Finally, the top spot of the podium is yours. First of all, just what is the feeling? What happened tonight? What changed? What was the mindset there once Logan went around there at the beginning? Did you feel comfortable there to the end? Did you feel like early this would be the one, or were you still worried there even to the very end here at Oulton Park?
I mean, I found it the best way, to not practice every single day of the week, because I did the same thing at Pocono last season. But with Logan, I could definitely see it coming, that he was gonna turn himself around. Basically, just because you have to anticipate the engine temperature, the tire temperature, of pacing for a couple of laps, and I basically backed off right when I saw him go off course, and just took my time. I don't even think I did the fastest lap. I really just tried to stay out of trouble, communicate my way through traffic and stuff, and worked out.
Well, certainly did. Yeah, I mean, all season you've had pace at any road course we've gone to. You were really quick last week at Belle Isle, and then the unfortunate finish to race 1. But you come into tonight, and is that what you've learned over the course of the season? Are you approaching each race differently to this point now that you've had some of the struggles and bad luck you've had so far? I mean, you talk about trying to just focus on lap traffic rather than pace. And now that you've got your win, now that you're even closer to Logan in the points, are you going to keep that kind of conservative mentality going forward this season?
Yeah, I mean, my idea going into tonight's race was just Logan, I think, is still out of my grasp, but not by much. Just not stop chasing, but just hold my position away from Max, and just keep second if I can't get first. So it's I'm probably gonna try the same strategy again next week, and probably for the whole rest of the season. But yeah, it's definitely gonna be a close battle, just like it was last season.
And it's a battle that I can't wait for. I can't wait to see, even next week at Iowa, such a competitive track, what results come out of it in terms of the championship performances. And speaking of Iowa, I mean, it's our third oval of the year. You could argue the second real one, because Indianapolis is an entirely different beast in its own right. But there at Iowa, our shortest oval of the year, it's one that is going to be so much more intricate than any oval. I'd argue it's going to be a lot less pack racing, but it's going to be a lot more about lap traffic, navigating just like you did tonight. Are you thinking that kind of thing is going to suit you, or are you going to be approaching it with the more aggressive mentality of trying to battle for a win there, or are you just solely focused on, same as tonight, keeping it safe, trying to avoid the very constant wave of lap traffic? Just what's your approach heading into Iowa next week?
Yeah, I mean, I always say I want to keep it safe, but I find the safest spot all the way in first and leading every single lap. Because yeah, like it's definitely going to be a difficult oval, no doubt about it. But like steel tire wear, but these tires are very, very durable. You can really use them and abuse them. But yeah, like with the dirty air at Iowa, I mean, many grooves in the racetrack, and it's just really it's a very interesting oval. In any car you run on it, so it's just, I mean, you do have to be aggressive, but yeah, at the end of the day, probably just gonna try to back it off with like 2 laps to go if people are right on me, and just try to take it on the last lap. I feel like that's been the trend for the last couple of ovals we've gone on, so I mean, just gonna try that.
Well, best of luck to you, man. I hope it works out for you, because after tonight, now that you finally got over the hump, I feel like the big results are going to come quick. Now that you've finally got that number 1 spot, I feel like whatever magical bad luck was keeping you out of that top spot all season is finally gone, and I can't wait for that battle between yourself and not only Logan but Trevor and Max and those guys that are really pressuring for that number 2 spot. I can't wait to see how it goes into next week, and it's a pleasure to ask or to mention this, because it's happened a couple times this year, but never as the race winner. This is the time, you get to talk to people at home, get to thank people, any messages you want to send, any sponsors you want to mention, but now for the first time this year, you're doing it as a race winner.
Yeah, I really want to just thank the Bedford School, Stamos Realtors, JP West Photo. They've been great sponsors for the past 2 seasons now. And yeah, I mean, I want to thank all my family and friends for watching. It's definitely been a while, and took a while to get a win, but finally did it. And yeah, just gonna try to keep my head down and keep on trucking, because the job's not done yet. So
it is not. Well, best of luck getting that job even closer to done next week at Iowa. I know you're one of the more knowledgeable guys about the American ovals, so I can't wait to see what you can tell me about that before next week and what you can teach to the rest of the field in practice. But for the time being, man, just congratulations. Congrats on the win this season. Can't wait to see if you can rattle off a few more the next few weeks. And for the time being, have a good week. Actually, I'll see you on Sunday for entirely different IndyCar series.
Sebring, I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sebring, so
so I will talk to you in 2 nights. But for the time being, have a good rest of your weekend, man. Celebrate your win, and we'll see you in this series at least next Friday.
All right. Thank you, Marshall.
And with that being said, that'll round off your final interview of the night. Mr. Andrew Bedrossian finally getting over that hump. Does what is come so close to so many times this year, and all it took was a rather uneventful race. It didn't take any shenanigans, didn't take any sort of chaos. Besides, of course, Logan's early race spin there that made things considerably easier. You could argue for getting that top spot, but once that happened, he didn't look back. He dominated every step of the way, and as a result, he is your race winner. Well, that'll bring us to the end of tonight's broadcast. Let's just put up your final race results one more time, and then we'll head off the air. Apologies in parts. Again, the tech side of things was great. I hope the graphics looked good. I hope the mic sounded good and everything. But well, there by the end, the the voice was starting to lose it. Hopefully, I sounded mostly able to enunciate my words. And mostly able to be comprehended. But next week, I'm hoping for even bigger and better things. It was a relatively uneventful race tonight, but I'm sure Iowa is going to be very chaotic indeed. So looking forward to seeing if that is indeed the case. But for the time being, for myself and the rest of the drivers in the Snowstorm Open Wheel Racing Series, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for watching round number 9. As always, thank you for putting stuff in the chat. Be sure to mention after we head off the air if you have any comments about the tech quality, anything you want me to change. And overall, just thank you all so much for watching. Have a good rest of your weekend. Have a great rest of your week. Be sure to stay safe. And we will see you all back next week for our third oval of the season. Our first short oval next week at Iowa Speedway. For the final time tonight, have a great week, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you all next Friday.